KUSI's Michael Turko has been keeping an eye on a city construction project that's been dragging along for months.
In fact, Turko says it's hard to see much progress at all since he's opened this file 3 months ago.
You go to the same places, you see the same things. It looks like hardly anything has changed. What we have here is a case where city contractors tore up almost everything in the neighborhood all at once. And 9 months later, it's still not put back together. The city says it's a new approach to fixing infrastructure problems, but people who live and work nearby say it's been a slow-motion train wreck. The 25th Street Renaissance project in Golden Hill was supposed to be the beginning of a new concept in neighborhood improvements. Do all the work at once. New water lines, new sidewalks, new pavement, and underground utilities. It's called One Dig.
This has been our concern all along, that the one dig approach isn't working. And I mean, we're experimenting here, but this isn't an experiment you want replicated in other communities just because the time that it takes.
The mayor was at the groundbreaking last April. The work started in August and was supposed to be done by the end of last year. Back in February, I interviewed Todd Gloria on this corner. Since then, it's the only intersection here that shows much progress.
We should have probably stood on every street corner and maybe all of them would have got repaired. The one that we stood on didn't get fixed.
But it's not a laughing matter. There's a fire station right in the middle of the construction where a busy intersection is cut down to one lane in each direction.
Isn't it time for this mess to be out of the way in front of your firehouse?
I would think so. I think it's been here long enough and it's time for them to fix the roads a little bit.
Is it a challenge to get through here sometimes?
Sometimes, yeah. Traffic builds up a lot right through here, and we only see a couple guys out there working on it at a time.
Neighbors are fed up.
This has been going on for far too long. Way too long. Many months, this, constantly, nobody working.
How often do you see people actually out here doing any work?
Once a week at the most.
When's the last time?
Not any time this week or even last week I can remember.
I don't know who's in charge, if the city's in charge or if it's an independent contractor, but it's taken an awful long time for them to get it constructed.
The contractor's an outfit called Tri Group. Neighbors say no work at all got done here today. They say the construction crews come and go, work for a few days, and then disappear. And their street's been torn up for months now.
And when's the last time you actually saw these Tri Group guys out here working?
Oh, gosh. We were really surprised to see him about 5 days ago. And it was, you know, Mike, like 3 or 4 people, not a crew that's going to be really doing things.
The city says Tri Group subcontracted out some of the work and ran into unexpected problems, like trolley tracks buried in the street. But businesses like this pawn shop say they're suffering every day the work drags on.
They've had literally my sidewalk closed for over a month where you can't park in front of my store. And then what they did is recently they put up no parking signs again, and they basically park their own vehicles there.
That's when they show up for work, and that's apparently not very often.
I want it done yesterday. Here it is, months and months later, still not done, and people are fed up.
Well, it's easy to blame the contractor, but don't forget the city is actually in charge of all the work out there. They say they expect it to be finished early this summer, at least 6 months behind schedule. I did leave a phone message with Tri Group Construction. If I get a response from them, I'll bring you their side of the story.
Can't wait to hear that one.
I would have asked them on the spot, but I didn't see anybody out there from Tri Group out at all.
They skedaddled.
Yeah.
Thanks, Turko. Neighbors called KUSI's Michael Turko about this city job back in February.
Turko says contractors are finally back on the job on a project that was supposed to be finished last year.
It got a big build-up from the mayor and everybody else. It's called the 25th Street Renaissance Project. Well, this job is the one that was supposed to rewrite the city's playbook on infrastructure repair. The goal was to speed up the process and minimize the hassles by doing the work all at once. They started last August. It was supposed to take 4 months. The city calls it One Dig, but the locals call it one big mess.
This is one thing they haven't seen nearly enough of in this Golden Hill construction zone: construction crews actually getting the job done. After my last report calling out prime contractor Tri Group, workers showed up and started pouring concrete, finishing curbs, and making real progress on a job that was supposed to be done last December. Everyone around here is just hoping they can hold on until it's over.
How is it affecting your business?
People think we're closed. It's hard for our customers to find parking.
It's horrible to see young women with their children in their strollers walking on the street because the sidewalks are closed. And this is a busy, throughway, and it's a nightmare. We've actually been told we're not allowed to walk through these barriers by the construction people. They want us to walk on the street or somewhere else.
Now remember, this is supposed to be a test of a new city concept called One Dig. Do the work more quickly by doing it all at once.
Since last summer, we're talking 3 blocks, and they're not done with anything. They're not done with it all. It should all be done.
It's a city job. It kind of drives you nuts, doesn't it?
My taxpayer dollars.
Mine too. Well, city officials now tell us the job should be done early this summer. Stay tuned.
KUSI's Michael Turko has a major new development on a city construction job he's been following since February.
Turko says the job is 6 months behind schedule, and now the contractor doing the work is blowing the whistle on city planners.
You don't see this very often, and they're just not pulling any punches. We're talking about a city construction job here that was supposed to take 4 months. 9 months later, it's nowhere near done. And now the prime contractor is coming forward to tell their side of the story on the Turko files. They say from day one, poor planning, bumbling bureaucrats, and incompetent city engineers torpedoed the job.
Everyone from Golden Hill neighbors to their city councilmen are fed up with constant delays here. Back in February, city engineers told us that was normal on big infrastructure jobs. But time after time since then, we found heavy equipment sitting here idle with no work going on. The main contractor is a company called Tri Group. Hanny Ossie owns the company. His brother Gus is running the job.
A lot of design issues came up, design changes due to field conditions. And from there on, delay after delay. And something out of our control.
Every delay costs somebody money.
Yes, it does.
And if it's the city's fault, it costs all of us taxpayers money.
It does. Definitely. That's the case.
Were any of these delays your fault on this job?
No, none of them are our fault. None.
Their consulting engineer, Michael Cornelius, says underground utilities were not where the city said they were on the plans.
SDG&E came in here and put all their underground utilities in the ground between the time they bid this job and the time they started the work.
They come out and you start digging and you find them.
And you find them. And you got to dig under them. And so the machine, instead of trenching with the machine, you're trenching by hand around all these utilities. And it just takes a lot of time.
You had to redesign the job while you're out here working.
Exactly, and matter of fact, we have a standby time as well. We couldn't do for a certain time. We had to stop. Matter of fact, we had a call from the city. They asked us to remove our equipment out of here and all the pipes, and that cost us a lot of money.
Part of the job was replacing the water main. It's supposed to be at least 3 feet deep, but other utilities were in the way.
So in some areas, this main line is only like a foot and a half below the surface of the road.
What do you do about that?
Well, they had to get the contractor to get special pipe to be able to withstand the loads that are imposed upon it by the traffic.
This is almost unbelievable hearing all this.
It's happening every day, Mr. Turko.
Here's one more example. This manhole cover is higher than the street. They tell me the city told them to just go ahead and move it, but they can't do that because the manhole belongs to AT&T. They haven't heard back from them yet, and they're supposed to start paving this intersection next week. In the middle of it all, on the other side of the intersection, is the local fire station.
We're still waiting for a design fix for the fire department here, for trying to move this hydrant over here.
You're trying to build an intersection in front of the firehouse But you don't have the plans
But
yet?
we don't have the plans yet.
What would you tell the people in this neighborhood who've been waiting almost a year now and they're sick and tired of it?
Well, I want to tell them it's not our fault. As a matter of fact, I mean, we're trying our best. We're working with the city as much as we can. Our goal is that when we bid a job, we want to finish it fast, and that's how we make our money.
Now remember, this job was supposed to be the poster child for a new city construction concept called One Dig. That's supposed to make neighborhood improvements less disruptive by doing all the work all at the same time. More on that in my next report.
What a mess, and a safety hazard as well.
Absolutely. I've been out there when there's only one lane open in each direction. They're trying to get a fire engine out of there. It's you have to have a guy directing traffic,
Right.
stopping people. There's cones in the way. It's a mess.
All right, Michael.
KUSI's Michael Turko is looking into major problems on a city construction job that was supposed to be finished last year.
It was a new approach to neighborhood improvements, but Turko says it turned into a slow-motion train wreck.
This job was supposed to reinvent the wheel for neighborhood infrastructure projects. It's a test case, the city's poster child for a new concept called One Dig. But neighbors, politicians, and the contractors doing the work all say the same thing. So far, One Dig has been one big mess.
Last year, the mayor announced a new concept for improvements in Golden Hill. New water mains, new sidewalks, utilities, and paving, carefully coordinated in a 4-month time frame.
To consolidate the efforts to minimize impacts to the neighborhood, and to do all the work at once.
This 4-month job is now 6 months behind schedule. Neighbors and small businesses are hurting, and their city councilman says it's a failure. So does the prime contractor, Tri-Group Construction.
When we first arrived to this job, so many contractors were here. We were on top of each other, and we brought it to the attention of the city that this is impossible to work with because of the coordination, and it just didn't work.
It's now been almost a year, with weeks on end going by and no work being done.
They give us like a traffic control phasing, so we had to deviate from the phasing with the city's permission in order to keep on working.
So when you got everything planned out like this step by step, one thing goes wrong and the whole thing collapses.
Absolutely. Of course. Of course.
Michael Cornelius is a construction engineering expert who's worked on bridges, tunnels, and huge freeway jobs.
This is probably on the small end of what you're...
This is on the small end.
He was hired by the contractor here to sort things out.
Do everything all at once. Will it work?
No, it can't work.
Why not?
Well, because you have just, like Mr. C was talking about, you have just too many people trying to do the same thing at the same time.
Now remember, this job is supposed to be a test case, a poster child for the city's new One Dig program. But with contractors tripping over each other, one delay after another, on a 4-month job that's already 6 months behind schedule, that poster is not a pretty picture at all. Construction insiders tell me poor planning is a big problem on most city jobs. Even worse when you're talking One Dig.
Is it just that the city doesn't have enough people planning this out, or the people they have are incompetent?
You know, I don't know quite how to answer that. I can tell you that it's incompetence with respect to solving the problems once the city knows that they exist. Nobody can make a decision. It takes forever to get things processed. You write them a question, an RFI, request for information. It takes a week or two to get an answer, and you're just sitting there waiting.
And remember what Tri-Group's owner told us in my first report? Delays cost money. If it's the contractor's fault, they pay penalties. If not, they charge the city for wasted time.
And if it's the city's fault, it costs all of us taxpayers money.
It does.
Were any of these delays your fault on this job?
No, none of them are our fault. None.
The city says major paving work will resume on the job next Monday, and the project should be completely finished early this summer. They also say they'll have a response to the contractor's allegations on the Turko files next week. I'm Michael Turko, only on KUSI News.
Last week, KUSI's Michael Turko exposed big problems with a new city construction concept.
Turko says the city promised a response, and now he has one. Sort of, anyway.
Yes, sort of. Not what we hoped for, but, you know, we got something out of them, which says something, I suppose. Well, I showed you how a city rebuilding project was supposed to be a test case for a new city approach called One Dig. Do all the work all at once with careful planning in advance to minimize construction time and disruption of the neighborhood. Well, that clearly hasn't worked, but the job is finally back on track using an old-fashioned concept called one step at a time. 25th Street is a main commercial corridor in the heart of Golden Hill, and it's once again a bustling construction zone. The work began last August. The city planned to replace water mains, underground utilities, put in new curbs, rebuild intersections, and repave the area with new bike lanes. It was supposed to be done by last December, but early this year the work seemed to grind to a halt, and weeks went by with almost nothing getting done. Here's what the city told me when I opened this file in February.
We're about 5 months behind on this project.
5 months.
And I'll call it delays. And so anytime you enter into construction, especially when you go below grade, you can run into unforeseen conditions.
But last week, the prime contractor Tri-Group Construction told me all of those unforeseen conditions were due to sloppy work and poor planning by the city. They say water mains weren't deep enough, utilities weren't where the city said they'd be, and the work wasn't scheduled in the right order. The city promised to respond to those allegations this week, and this is what we got. A letter saying they don't agree with Tri-Group's statements, but can't say anything more because of a contract dispute with Tri-Group. One thing everyone does agree on is that no one realized old trolley tracks were buried under the street. Those have now been removed, and even though the contract dispute continues, the work is finally getting finished.
Now, the nice thing about this is that we won't be back there for a long time. So from that perspective, one construction window that's a bit longer, I think it might end up being a little bit better than coming back in a few more years and disrupting that neighborhood again.
Let's hope. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When I opened this file 4 months ago, the city basically agreed that all of the issues the contractor told us about were in fact problems, just not their fault. They also said they had to depart from their do-it-all-at-once one dig plan and do the work in stages. Stay tuned.
14 months ago, KUSI's Michael Turko got a tip from a neighbor about a city job that seemed to be going nowhere.
Turko finally found out what went wrong, as told by the contractor who ran the job.
2 years ago, the city hired a contractor to build a retaining wall beside a city street. It was supposed to take about 6 months, but the project dragged on for well over a year. Well, it turns out the same company that recently called out the city for fouling up a big job in Golden Hill had this contract too. And they say in both cases, city planners and city engineers dropped the ball.
When Tri-Group Construction was hired to build this retaining wall in Point Loma, the first thing they did was clear the brush. They say the slope underneath didn't match what was shown on the city plans, so their subcontractor was stuck.
We could not build it the way that the city wanted.
Would the wall have stayed there?
No.
So the citizens would have had a wall that collapsed and dumped dirt into the street?
Yes, and potentially had the buildings on top fall with it.
Michael Cornelius is a consulting engineer on huge government projects, like this bridge on the Missouri River. He also worked for Tri-Group on the retaining wall.
We had to hire our own surveyor to survey the wall. 4 months later, they said, you're right, we got to raise the wall, okay?
There's a 4-month delay right there.
There's a 4-month delay right there. So we got the new drawings in February.
Retaining walls are anchored with these rods called nails that penetrate horizontally into the slope. But with the new plans, those nails would end up under private property. So Tri-Group needed easements.
So we had to get the city attorney involved. We had to hire an attorney. They had to work out all that stuff. They had to go buy easements. They had to pay the property owners more money. They had to give them something to get these easements. And that took another 2 or 3 months.
During all those delays, one lane of the street was completely blocked. But visit after visit, we found equipment just sitting there covered with dust on a job that was going nowhere. The contractor says they offered to remove the equipment at no charge while the city figured things out. But the city said no.
They threatened to terminate our contract and sue us for breach of contract for pulling equipment off.
They wanted you to leave the equipment there.
They wanted us to leave the equipment there.
Idle.
Idle.
And now you want them to pay for that?
Correct.
Why would they want you to leave your equipment out there idle?
That's a question for the city. I have no clue.
So I did ask the city about that, but city engineers refused to give out any detailed information on this job. They say that's because they're involved in a contract dispute with Tri Group, a dispute that could lead to litigation, not just on this job, but on that construction debacle I've been covering over on 25th Street. Tri Group's expert says when the work restarted, the city insisted on using air drills, and that caused blowback from fractured soil, took more time, and made the job harder. He also says the project took 4 times as much concrete as specified in the contract. They submitted change orders asking the city to pay for all that when the job was finally finished last December. They're still waiting.
This division of the field engineering division of the Public Works, in my opinion, is corrupt. Okay, they're incompetent and they're corrupt. And
how are they corrupt?
Well, because they put on the back of all these small subcontractors the burden of financing their mistakes for months and months and months. I mean, people have jobs, they have families, they have to get paid, and they're not getting paid.
Frankly, I think corruption is too strong a word. The city did tell me their bottom line is making sure taxpayer dollars are well spent. In this case, the final bill was 50% more than spelled out in the original contract. The city says they have to evaluate that very carefully to make sure the extra charges are justified and any extra work is done in the most efficient and cost-effective manner possible. I'm Michael Turko, only on KUSI News.
Michael Turko is always looking for ways to help our viewers. If you need a